Trust is in short supply in the finance sector right now. A conga line of corporate and financial scandals from the GFC all the way through to the current Hayne Royal Commission has contributed to a damaging trust deficit. Critics say the fundamental problem is a toxic sales culture, and they're calling on the regulator and courts to pursue top executives with jail time. Vicki Comino is the author of a book on ASIC, Australia's company law watchdog. She joined me from our Brisbane studio. Vicki Comino, we've spent so much time talking about what's wrong at these financial institutions that we have. What can be done? ASIC is trying to get out on the front foot now and saying that it will put specialist people inside the institutions to help clean them up. Is it going to work?
Well, I think it's a big step in the right direction, that it is ramping up bank scrutiny by, this new proposal to embed ASIC's supervisors in the big banks in the hope that that will drive cultural change and rebuild trust, because trust in the financial sector is at its lowest point, which is not surprising given the procession of banking scandals both post GFC and with the revelations of misconduct that have emerged from the Hayne Royal Commission.
David Murray, of course, long-term banker, has recently said that Greg Medcraft, the most previous head of ASIC, led the regulator completely astray by focusing on fixing culture inside the institutions. Has ASIC always been soft?
No, I don't think it has been so. I mean, it's more complicated than that. I think ASIC has tried to bring on some, take on some big high-profile cases. In the past, it's James Hardie, the Australian Wheat Board, OneTel. So there have been some big cases that ASIC has brought, and it needs to continue that. But in the last few years, what we've seen is a shift away from even civil penalty proceedings and criminal proceedings, of course, in favour of new enforcement mechanisms, enforceable undertakings in particular, which are negotiated settlements.
ASIC said that these enforceable undertakings are preferable to them because they've indicated that the laws are lacking, enabling them to get any kind of compensation for customers. Is that the case? Are the laws lacking?
I don't think they are, and particularly in the future. I mean, the government has promised now to increase the penalties. The penalties were laughable in the past. The penalties were as low as $200,000. Criminal penalties under the Corporations Act were $360,000. Jail terms were only 5 years. But ASIC now has been armed with higher jail terms in relation to misconduct where directors breach their duties. So now we'll have the power to bring these criminal prosecutions and also civil penalty proceedings in appropriate cases.
And I think it's now down to the courts to actually use this. The courts haven't done so really in the past. They haven't made a point of really maximising any of the penalties that are available to them. Do you think there's anything that will change that?
Well, there's hope, because I think one of the things, though, that has come out of the Royal Commission is that, the regulatory landscape as far as the banks are concerned is forever changed. And I think there are some really important messages coming out of the Royal Commission where ASIC needs to act, and also the courts when ASIC does bring actions in appropriate cases, for example, against AMP, which was involved in along with the major banks, they were all involved in the fee for no service scandal. But AMP also misled the regulator, that is ASIC, on at least 20 occasions. And there was an indication by Ms. Orr that, criminal proceedings could be brought. And there are provisions in the corporations legislation which allow for that, and also for jail terms to be imposed. And I think ASIC needs to, take that sort of action to show that it is serious.
We'll wait and see. Vicki Comino, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Elise.